Not only is Marcus Roberts a graduate of Florida State University, he is also an assistant professor at the School of Music. He owns and operates a burgeoning jazz label, and he's been out touring with his band and took a few minutes to come down and sit with us and just kind of catch us up on where he is. Marcus, thank you very much for your time and for sharing this part of your world with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
I could honestly fill, I think, the entire segment up with just the happenings of 1 week that I spent kind of following you around when we were talking about doing this piece. It was a whirlwind, and as I recall, you were in the studio recording enough material to put 3 albums together. You did 2 live performances, you did a workshop, you operated and managed a very successful Kickstarter campaign, and oh yeah, you were interviewed by 60 Minutes. Amazing stuff. Right. Tell us, what was that like, and how has it affected you both personally and professionally?
Well, I have to say it was a pretty monumental week for me, especially considering that a couple weeks before that, I turned 50. So that all in the same month was pretty spectacular stuff, really. The recording session was important because I was recording a bunch of musicians from 3 different generations who I've known and worked with, and we have a chemistry and a perspective in music that I felt was important to document and put out. And we like to call this band the modern jazz generation because of that. We have these 3 generations, and mentorship is a big part of jazz music. It's a very important part of jazz music. So my generation and 2 under me, we all collaborated that week, I feel really very successfully, to do 3 very good recordings that I'm looking forward to editing and putting out very soon. And then, as far as the 60 Minutes part of it, that's just been, I mean, I like most of us, I used to watch 60 Minutes as a kid, you know, like every week, every Sunday at 7 o'clock. And I certainly had no idea or any thought that I would be the subject of one of their pieces covering, you know, my career and what I do. But the thing about working with them, first of all, they're just first-class professional and you know, personally wonderful people. And you know, working with them, it did help me to put my own career in perspective. I really don't think that much about it. Typically, I just kind of go project to project and you know, I'm on to the next thing. But for once, I had to really think about, over the past 25 or 30 years, you know, well, what have you been up to? You know, what have you been doing? How did you get into music? I mean, they do a story in a way where it's not just, you know, music, or it's not just about a CD or promoting your website or promoting a set of concerts, but they dig deeper into the mechanics of why you're doing what you're doing. And they just have a real, very interesting way of doing it that frankly, in my case, it's helped me to gain a foundational understanding of the next big stage of my career. And it's helped to validate and confirm exactly why I do what I do. And it's helping me to just figure out what the next steps really should be.
And what do you think those are?
Well, for example, you know, putting this band together, organizing this recording, wanting to organize a concert that they could shoot, because they said they wanted some footage of us playing. So then I had to organize a concert at Ruby Diamond Auditorium and at a club so they could see me in 2 different settings, in 2 different bands, because I do have a trio, which I've, you know, kept together for a long time. And then a big group, that's like a 12-piece group, the Modern Jazz Generation. And so, you know, I wanted to organize that. I don't know if I would have done it during a week of recording if, you know, 60 Minutes wasn't going to be there. And then, of course, teaching, education is a big part of what I'm interested in, working with young people, teaching them how to play, giving them the experience and guiding them through the process of learning how to collaborate together, work together, listen to each other, deal with the history of our music, the great tradition of the masters that we have at our disposal when we study jazz, And then finally, learning how to put it on the stage properly, to present it to people in a way where people's kind of fear of jazz, frankly, will be reconciled with being communicated with in a way where they feel like, jazz actually is better than I thought. Because a lot of people really don't necessarily know that there's jazz that will suit their personality and suit, their taste. So it's our job to give a creative presentation at the highest level possible so that we can let people know that, we have something for them.
So you feel, as part of your charge and part of your mission is to give back and help nurture this next generation along. I mean, you're teaching, obviously, college students, and you brought many of those people who you brought into the studio of the 12-member band were either students or recent graduates, and so you're trying to help shape the next generation along.
Absolutely. I believe that an art form is great when you have multi-generational advancement, being done collaboratively. And so, older musicians certainly helped me when I was coming up, gave me opportunities. And so, I think it's very important to mentor them, to support them, to give them opportunities. But also, the energy that you get when you work with young people. Because, see, they're not jaded from 2 decades of frustration or 25 years of this or that. They have life ahead of them. And they have an exciting kind of energy and an openness about things. And also a freshness of perspective, because every generation has different issues, different things that they can work with to advance their cause. And so my job is simply to give them the detail, the information, the knowledge base, and the perspective and leadership so that their personality can come out and serve their own agenda.
Excellent. Shift gears for a second, Marcus. Certainly you've been called in many circles a musical genius, and Wynton Marsalis himself said that you've invented or created a brand new way to play the piano. What is it that when you're composing and when you're playing, when you're writing, where do you pull from? Where does that come from? Is it your history? Is it your present? Is it your future? What is that? What feeds that?
Well, when you play jazz music, the past, present, and future coincide. They exist simultaneously. Because, see, you're producing the future as you play. And as you play, what you just played even becomes in the past. So you have to keep track of where you were, where you are, and where you wish to go at all times to take a successful jazz solo or to present our music the way it should be. And of course, what makes it really special is that typically you've got a group of people on the bandstand doing the same thing. So you never know at any moment what somebody's going to play. And so you're under pressure, under the pressure of time. And your goal is to improvise in such a way where you're not just concerned with your playing, but you want to uplift the agenda of everybody else around you, and you want to be open to the information that they can give to you spontaneously that will uplift what you're trying to play. Those things are in my head, in my consciousness or subconsciousness. Now, from a conscious standpoint, well, of course, I practice, every day as much as I can. And my whole goal and my whole agenda from the very beginning is to learn how to play the piano at the top level that I possibly can. So I continue to practice as much as I can, as much of the history of jazz piano as I can, not to be an archivist or to celebrate it, in the way of celebrating like archaeology or like a museum specimen, but I practice it because it gives me the basis for my improvisation. So if I study Jelly Roll Morton, well, he solved a lot of problems. So instead of me taking 10 years to try to figure it out, if I study what he did, well, the things that he figured out, it might take me 6 months or a year. If I listen to Nat King Cole, he's the inventor of the jazz trio. So there's all kind of information there. Oscar Peterson, Ahmad Jamal, Earl Garner, on and on and on. McCoy Tyner, And then not just pianists, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, other great singers like Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington. So I try to use the whole history of jazz, not just one specific decade, but the entire history as much as I can understand. And if I have studied properly on a conscious level when I practice, then that information is available to me at any time on stage. And that's where, from a performing standpoint, that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. When I'm composing, it's similar. Now you're studying the logic and the way different great artists compose music, like John Coltrane's quartet had a lot of influence on me, Thelonious Monk, Duke Ellington. And then in terms of, classical music, I mean, I absolutely love Bach and Beethoven's piano sonatas and symphonies, and Chopin, who to me is unparalleled writing for the piano, and the French composers Ravel and Debussy, because that's more lighter textures and more introspective composing. And so when you add all that up, if you can get like 3 to 5% realistically of what that is and incorporate that into your world, which is what I like to do, I feel pretty good about where that takes me.
Fascinating. Of all of the musicians, composers, or any type of musician in the world, do you have a favorite, either someone you have played with, you love to play with, you you love studying, or do you have someone that just rises to the top of the list?
Well, as far as living composers or pianists, that would be Ahmad Jamal. I mean, I love him.
Amazing.
He's unbelievable. He's always been very good to me, and my whole trio conception comes directly, like 80% from him. Just the logic and the way he used cues to cue the band and like expand form and everything. And plus he's just playing all kinds of piano. He's like 83 years old. He still continues to play at a mind-boggling level of sophistication on the instrument. And then John Coltrane. His music. There's something in Train's music that brings together folk tradition and an old sound, like a sound that could be 2,000 years old, and it's folk, and it's just like community, and it's like everybody's song. But then he put it inside of this very complex template of harmonic scheme and formal structure and technical virtuosity. And then his whole band did the same thing. So that's why that quartet always sounds bigger to me than a quartet, because of the energy and the spontaneity and the soul and the blues feeling mixed with all of these very, very exotic, sophisticated melodies and harmonic frameworks that they worked on. So that band, so him and Ahmad, if I was just gonna pick two people just off the top of my head, that are just personal to me. And then Thelonious Monk, probably those three.
Shift gears again briefly. Just talk about your relationship with the university. What was it that made you decide to come to Florida State, not only to study, but then to return to teach? And how's that affected both your personal and your professional lives?
Well, there are two people that are responsible for me to come into Florida State. One was my piano teacher when I was in college, who worked with me during one of the high school classical music camps, Leonidas Lipovetsky. He taught me
Amazing.
A whole lot about piano when I was here, and it took me years and years to understand a lot of the things that he was talking about, because the piano is a very complicated instrument. There's just, you could be busy just playing box music on the piano your whole life, like Glenn Gould did. I mean, it's, so he was instrumental. And then Bill Kennedy, who recruited me to play in the jazz band when I was here, was very, very encouraging, and he did a lot of great things to encourage me and to help me kind of get out here playing. So I left school in 1985 to go tour with Wynton Marsalis, and I thought I'd be right back because I was originally only supposed to go out there for like a week or two. And a week became 2 weeks, and a month, and a year, and 6 years later, so that was that. And then finally, years went by. I really hadn't been to Florida State really in years. Of course, I kept up with the football team, and they were doing great, winning national championships and stuff. So, a lot was going on. And then I came back here as an artist in residence in 2003. And really connected with the students. There were some students in the jazz program that were really pretty serious, and they had a band. Rodney Jordan, who's now my bassist in my trio, he was working with that combo, and I worked with them, and so we became close. And a year later, they asked me to join the faculty in 2004, and I did. And it's been great because the program has increased in stature and seriousness every year that I've been here. And the young people, every year it seems like we've been able to convince them to take that next step. And we really don't accept students who are not serious. We don't accept students who are not inspired to keep their grades up and deal with the scholastic imperatives of our music. Because like I tell them, we don't have any dumb, great jazz musicians. They're all pretty intelligent. So it's been great to come back here, to give back, and again, to function as a mentor to these young men and women, and to reconnect, because it's a great university, it's a great tradition. We have a fantastic music department, great people around here teaching piano and voice and violin and trumpet and the whole thing. So my goal is just to see us collaborate within the music school and with other entities outside of the music school, and to give our community the best performances we can.
What's next for Marcus Roberts?
Well, I'm just going to continue to do what I do. I'm always teaching, I'm always recording, I'm always editing records, mixing records. I want to get this big group off the ground. That's going to take, some time. And I have, other projects to do. I wrote a piano concerto this year, so I want to figure out a way to get that played more, because I do have a strong belief and interest that classical music and jazz should become a bit more integrated with each other. I think we can help each other build audiences, build the music to the next level as well, because both of the musics have similar goals, though the way that they evolved were different. Jazz is more of an oral tradition, classical music is more of a written tradition. But the bottom line is that both art forms have a general interest in very sophisticated methods of expression, and that's because adult life is complicated. So you can't really come up with a simple way of describing adult life. It's complex. And so human existence, for that reason, the art that matches it tends to be complicated, but a lot of the basic principles of struggle are simple. So what you have to do is you got to figure out a way to give people something simple that solves a complicated issue, and the complexity is just underneath. It's like a great meal made by a great chef. Like there might be 18 ingredients, but all you know is that it tastes good. And so the bottom line is, my goal is to give people music that sounds good, that uplifts them, that gives them a sense of solidarity with other people who they normally might not interface with, and also to continue to educate and teach the young people, because they will be our audience one day. They will be booking concert halls, they'll be promoting jazz, they'll be involved in the business end of it, perhaps management. So there's a lot to do. So I just want to play my role in that.
Marcus, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'm a Seminole, so I say go Noles.
Go
Let's
Noles.
do it.
Go
Let's
Noles
do it.
indeed. Marcus, thank you very much for your time.